All right, let's jump right into this explainer, because we've got a seriously unexpected collision to unpack today. We're talking about how massive macroeconomic trade wars, specifically between Trump's Washington and Doug Ford's Ontario, are literally colliding with cutting-edge mobile AI right at the Ontario-Michigan border. We're going to dive deep into the year-to-date headline news trends, looking at the renegotiations of the USMCA, or CSUSMA, up in Canada, and see how all of this trickles down into a surprisingly volatile commodity: municipal solid waste. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the trade war waste crisis, then look at the Ontario-Michigan trash corridor, introduce 905 Wood, the Sentient Bridge, break down the Pixel 10 Pro AI stack, walk through the digital refinery application workflow, and wrap up with leading the circular bioeconomy. We're zooming all the way in from giant geopolitical shifts down to the microscopic edge AI that's actively solving this problem. Okay, Section 1, the trade war waste crisis. To really grasp the solution here, we first need to take an objective look at the geopolitical threat that's currently looming over North American supply chains. Look at how fast this tension is escalating. In early 2025, Washington hit Canada with a 25% universal tariff. Almost immediately, Premier Doug Ford's Ontario government countered, threatening a 25% surcharge on electricity exported to the U.S. Then, looking ahead to mid-2026, we have proposed Section 301 tariffs targeting forced labor. And the absolute kicker? July 2026, that's when the CUSMA expiration countdown was triggered. This treaty isn't static anymore. It's subject to annual reviews. So if you're operating across the border, you absolutely need a foolproof compliance escape hatch, like right now, just to survive. Moving right along to Section 2, the Ontario-Michigan trash corridor. Let's see how this high-level political drama actually hits the ground, specifically when it comes to municipal solid waste, or MSW, being shipped across the border for disposal. The sheer scale of this is just wow. Every single year, Michigan imports 3.46 million tons of trash from Ontario. I mean, this pipeline is an absolute lifeline for Canada's most populous province. But thanks to that USMCA friction we just talked about, this massive transboundary waste corridor is under serious threat from unilateral border closures and totally grueling customs audits. And to put that scale into perspective for the US side, that Canadian waste makes up a massive 14.35% of all waste disposed of in Michigan landfills. Both sides of the border are deeply, completely entwined here. Waste management operators are heavily exposed to sudden tariff escalations and regulatory roadblocks that could honestly freeze their operations overnight. And navigating this corridor, it just got a whole lot harder. Michigan is proposing a staggering 1,288% tipping fee surge. We're talking a jump from a legacy fee of just 36 cents per ton all the way up to $5 a ton. This is specifically designed to discourage Canadian waste imports. Meanwhile, feeling that squeeze, Doug Ford's government in Ontario pushed Bill 5 to fast-track their own domestic landfills, like that highly contested Dresden project, basically bypassing standard environmental assessments. So the pressure is just boiling over from both sides. The anxiety out there is super palpable. The narwhal recently hit the nail on the head, asking Ontario could run out of landfill space in 9 years. Then what? With a severe capacity cliff looming by 2034, the old-school way of hauling waste just isn't viable anymore. You can't just toss trash in a truck and casually drive it over the Ambassador Bridge. Without high-integrity trade compliance and totally transparent data, the physical movement of waste is paralyzed. Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, 905 Wood, the Sentient Bridge. This is the tech solution that flips this entire regulatory nightmare into a huge industrial opportunity. So 905 Wood operates as what they call a sentient bridge. It's not just a disposal service, right? It's actually a digital refinery. It takes orphaned municipal solid waste, specifically wood, and converts it into highly verified, pure feedstock for the pyrogenic biocarbon market. They are literally bridging the chaotic world of construction demolition and strictly regulated international compliance standards, turning what is essentially garbage into high-value, sustainable carbon products. All right, Section 4, the Pixel 10 Pro AI stack. Let's zoom in even further and look at the actual hardware making this happen right at the front gate. Because, how do you actually digitize a dumpster? Well, you do it by taking a commercial smartphone and souping it up into an absolute industrial powerhouse. No joke. 19.5 Codewood literally uses the Google Pixel 10 Pro running Android 16 with the LiteRT AI stack. By tapping into the massive power of that 3-nanometer Tensor G5 chip, they physically relocated the brain of the digital refinery straight to the edge of their operations. And backing all this up, Vertex AI pipelines that parse crazy complex environmental laws and an Alloy DB backbone that creates an unalterable compliance ledger. What this setup enables is something they call explainable compliance. They're running the Gemma 4 E2B model locally on the phone. That's an edge AI with 2.3 billion parameters. And it classifies whether wood is clean or contaminated in under 500 milliseconds, half a second. And here's the cool part. If the AI's confidence drops below 85%, it triggers a safeguard they call a visual fallacy guard. If it's still iffy, the system rejects the load. Period. They strictly use the precautionary principle. When in doubt, kick it out, way before a non-compliant shipment ever gets onto a truck. Let's move to Section 5, the digital refinery application workflow. What does this deep tech integration actually look like for the buyer? Let's walk through the actual UI and UX workflow. It kicks off with a voice AI intake that automatically builds out a structured request for quote, or RFQ. Once the material arrives, it hits that ultra-strict compliance gate AI classification right there at the bin. Then it undergoes sensor-based verification, using X-ray and near-infrared sensors to sniff out heavy metals like arsenic and lead. And finally, the system generates a totally tamper-proof digital audit trail. The end result of this entire workflow is a really high-fidelity output PDF documentation package. And guys, this isn't just some basic receipt. It includes a signed certificate of origin, details hitting all those USMCA Article 3 mandates, and even LVC, labor value content certification, to prove wage thresholds were met. This is a big deal because it acts as a literal USMCA shield. It satisfies those brutal U.S. customs audits with tamper-proof data that links straight back to Ontario Regulation 347 environmental compliance codes. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 6, leading the circular bioeconomy. Let's look at the ultimate economic payoff for Ontario, turning all this risk into some serious reward. By using this incredibly sophisticated workflow, the 905 Wood Digital Refinery successfully bypasses massive financial penalties. With a decoupled billing architecture, they legally avoid the painful $60 per ton circle levy, saving a ton of money while still hitting over 60% waste diversion. Plus, by tracking methane production in real time, they generate verified carbon dividends, or CORCs. They are literally turning emission savings into liquid assets. And this pristine documentation, it even buffers against physical supply chain nightmares like the upcoming World Cup border congestion. So it really leaves you wondering about the future of international trade, doesn't it? When consumer hardware like a Pixel smartphone can be transformed into an industrial sentient bridge, securing an entire province's waste infrastructure against global trade wars, it proves that compliance isn't just a legal hurdle anymore. It is a straight-up competitive weapon. If a mobile phone can secure Ontario's leadership in the global circular bioeconomy, is Edge AI the ultimate shield for international trade sovereignty? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring how technology is reshaping our world.